My wife handed me divorce papers as a prank while our kids slept upstairs. I signed every page without hesitation. When she screamed, I was kidding. I just pushed the pen toward her. She thought it was a game until I hired a private investigator and discovered the ugly truth. My name is Julian Keller. I'm 42 years old. And until recently, I thought I had it all figured out. I run a business consulting firm here in Columbus, Ohio. Nothing fancy, just me and 2 part-time employees helping small businesses get their finances straight. It's honest work that pays the bills and lets me sleep at night, where it used to. Anyway, I've been married to Alara for 8 years. She's a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized tech company downtown. We have 2 kids, Leo, who's 6 and sharp as a tack, and little Chloe, who just turned 2 and has her mother's stubborn streak. On paper, we look like the American dream. Nice house in Worthington, 2 cars in the driveway, kids in good schools. But paper lies sometimes. The first red flag I missed was when Alara started working late. Not once or twice a week, but 3 or 4 nights running. Big project, she'd say, kissing my forehead before grabbing her laptop bag. Marcus is pushing everyone hard on this campaign. Marcus Thorne, her new boss, who transferred from their Denver office 6 months ago. 38, divorced. One of those guys who wears expensive watches and drives a BMW. I'd met him at the company Christmas party. Firm handshake, confident smile, the kind of man who makes other men feel inadequate without trying. The second red flag was her phone. Alara used to leave it lying around everywhere. Kitchen counter, coffee table, charging station by the bed, but suddenly it went everywhere with her. Bathroom, laundry room, even when she was just grabbing something from the garage. When I asked about it, she'd shrug and say work was crazy. She needed to stay connected. Third red flag, she stopped talking about her day. Alara's always been a talker. She'd come home and tell me everything. Office gossip, project updates, who said what in meetings. But those conversations dried up. Instead, she'd come home, kiss the kids, grab a glass of wine, and zone out on her phone. I told myself I was being paranoid. Marriage counselors always say trust is the foundation, right? Besides, I was busy too. My client load had doubled over the summer, and I was working weekends trying to keep up. Maybe we were just ships passing in the night, and things would settle down once her project wrapped up. But deep down, in that place where men don't like to admit they're scared, I knew something was wrong. Real wrong. The night everything changed started like any other. I'd picked up the kids from daycare, made dinner, spaghetti, because it's the only thing Leo will eat without a fight, and was cleaning up when Alara walked in. 9:15 p.m. Daddy, why is Mommy always at work? Leo asked while I tucked him in. I didn't have a good answer for that one. The confrontation I'd been dreading finally came on a Tuesday night in November. Alara had walked in at 9:30, claiming another late meeting with Marcus about the Henderson account. I was in the kitchen cleaning up from dinner when she dropped her purse on the counter with that particular thud. That meant she was irritated about something. We need to talk, Alara said, pulling a manila folder from her bag. I dried my hands on the dish towel, already feeling my stomach tighten. About what? She slid the folder across the granite countertop toward me. Don't freak out, okay? It's just something I've been thinking about. I opened the folder and felt the world tilt sideways. Divorce papers. Official ones with the state seal and everything. Our names, addresses, the kids' information, all filled out in Alara's neat handwriting. At the bottom of the last page, her signature stared back at me like an accusation. What the hell is this? I asked, my voice coming out rougher than I intended. Alara laughed. Actually laughed. Relax, Julian. It's a joke. I thought it might be. Funny. You know, shake things up a little. You've been so serious lately. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline that wasn't coming. You think divorce papers are funny? Come on, she said, waving her hand dismissively. It's not real. I just wanted to see your reaction. You've been so distant, so caught up in work. I thought maybe this would get your attention. I picked up the pen she'd left beside the folder, the expensive Mont Blanc pen I'd given her for our 5th anniversary. Without saying a word, I signed every page that needed my signature. Each stroke of ink felt deliberate. Final. When I slid the folder back across the counter, Alara's face went white. Wait, she said, her voice suddenly sharp. I was kidding, Julian. I was just messing around. I looked at her for a long moment. Really looked at her. The woman I'd married 8 years ago seemed like a stranger standing in my kitchen. You know what's funny, Alara? I believe you. You were kidding. But that's exactly the problem. What do you mean? I mean, you thought our marriage was something to joke about. You thought handing me legal documents, ending everything we've built together would be entertaining. Alara's mouth opened and closed like she was searching for words that wouldn't come. You're being ridiculous. It was just a prank. And I just pushed the pen toward you, I said, gesturing to the Mont Blanc still lying on the counter. Your turn is signed. Julian, you can't be serious. Dead serious. I closed the folder and set it firmly in front of her. You started this game, Alara. Let's finish it. She stared at the folder like it might bite her. This is insane. You're overreacting to everything lately. Maybe if you paid more attention to your family instead of your stupid clients, we wouldn't have problems. You're right about one thing, I said, leaning against the sink. We do have problems, but they didn't start with my work schedule. The silence stretched between us like a loaded gun. Somewhere upstairs, Leo coughed in his sleep, and the sound reminded me why this conversation mattered more than just hurt feelings. How long have you been seeing Marcus? I asked quietly. Alara's eyes widened. I'm not seeing anyone. You're being paranoid. Am I? Then why do you smell like his cologne right now? She looked down at her clothes, then back at me. For the first time since she'd walked in, she looked genuinely worried. The aftershave comment hit Alara like a slap. She took a step back, her hand automatically going to her collar. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice wavered. Hugo Boss, I said, crossing my arms. Same cologne Marcus was wearing at the Christmas party. Funny thing is, I've never worn Hugo Boss in my life. Alara's face cycled through emotions. Denial, anger, fear, then something that looked almost like relief. Fine, she said, throwing her hands up. Yes, okay, Marcus and I have been close. But it's not what you think. Really? What should I think when my wife comes home smelling like another man and hands me divorce papers as entertainment? It just happened, Julian. We were working late and he was going through his divorce and I was feeling ignored at home. You're always buried in work, always tired, always somewhere else. I felt anger rising in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. So instead of talking to your husband about feeling ignored, you decided to get attention from your boss. It's not that simple, Alara snapped. When's the last time you really looked at me? When's the last time we had a real conversation that wasn't about bills or the kids' schedules? She wasn't wrong about that part, and it stung. But cheating wasn't the answer. How long? I asked. 2 months, she whispered. Maybe 3. And this? I gestured to the divorce papers. Was this his idea? Alara shook her head. No, this was mine. I thought maybe if you fought for me, if you got jealous, it would prove you still cared. So you test me instead of just asking. I didn't know how to ask anymore. The admission hung between us like smoke. Part of me understood her frustration. I have been distant, wrapped up in growing the business. But understanding and accepting were 2 different things. The kids can't know about this, I said finally. Whatever happens between us, Leo and Chloe, don't get hurt by our mistakes. Alara nodded, tears starting to form in her eyes. What happens now? I looked at the signed divorce papers, then at the woman I promised to love for better or worse. Now you have a choice to make. Him or your family. But you can't have both. Julian, please. Can't we work through this? I don't know, I said honestly. But I do know I won't be anyone's backup plan. The next morning felt like walking through a minefield. Alara had slept in the guest room, and I'd spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, wondering how we got in here. When I came downstairs to make breakfast, she was already at the kitchen table with her laptop and a cup of coffee. I called in sick, she said without looking up. Thought we should talk more. I poured myself coffee and sat across from her. About what? About fixing this mess. Is that what you want? To fix it? She finally looked at me, and I could see she'd been crying. I don't want to lose my family, Julian. I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. What you did was make a choice. Multiple choices over multiple months. I know that. Her voice was small. But I want to make different choices now. Before I could respond, Leo wandered into the kitchen in his Batman pajamas, rubbing his eyes. Why is Mommy crying? He asked, climbing into my lap. Mommy just has something in her eye, I said, forcing a smile. You want pancakes for breakfast? Can we have chocolate chips? Leo asked hopefully. Sure, buddy. As I got up to start breakfast, I caught Alara watching our son with a look of pure regret. Whatever else she'd done wrong, I knew she loved the kids. That made this whole situation more complicated, not less. After I dropped Leo at school and Chloe at daycare, I drove to my office but couldn't concentrate on anything. My business partner, Paul, knocked on my door around 10 o'clock. You look like hell, he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. What's going on? Paul and I have been friends since college. If anyone could give me straight advice, it was him. Alara has been cheating, I said bluntly, with a boss. Paul's eyebrows shot up. Jesus, Julian, how'd you find out? I told him about the divorce papers and the confrontation. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? He asked. That's the million-dollar question. You know what I think? I think you should get a lawyer today. Even if you decide to work things out, you need to protect yourself and the kids. Paul was right. Whatever happened next, I needed to be smart about it. There's something else, I said. I'm thinking about hiring a private investigator. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with. That's not a bad idea. My cousin Gregor does that kind of work. Want his number? I nodded. If Alara wanted to save our marriage, she was going to have to prove it. But first, I needed to know the whole truth about what I was trying to save. Gregor Novak turned out to be exactly what I needed. A former cop who specialized in infidelity cases. We met at a diner on the east side of Columbus, away from anywhere Alara might show up. Your buddy Paul filled me in on the basics, Gregor said, sliding a manila folder across the table. But I need details. When did the suspicious behavior start? Any specific patterns? I told him everything. The late nights, the phone guarding, the sudden interest in looking good for work. Gregor took notes on a small pad, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Here's what I can do, he said when I finished. I'll follow her for a week, document her activities, take photos if necessary. Standard surveillance package runs $1,500. It was money I didn't want to spend, but I needed to. Know the truth. Do it. One more thing, Gregor added. Whatever I find, it might not be what you want to hear. Some clients think they want the truth until they get it. I'm past wanting, I said. I need facts. That afternoon, I met with Astrid Svensson, the divorce attorney Paul had recommended. Her office was all mahogany and leather, the kind of place that charged by the hour and didn't apologize for it. Based on what you've told me, Astrid said, reviewing the notes she'd taken, you're in a relatively strong position. Ohio is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can still impact custody and asset division. What about the kids? That's where things get complicated. Courts prefer joint custody unless there's evidence of unfitness. But if we can prove she's been exposing the children to her affair partner, or if her behavior shows poor judgment. She wouldn't do that, I said quickly. Whatever else Alara is, she's not stupid. People make surprising choices when they're caught up in an affair, Astrid warned. The important thing is to document everything. Keep a journal of her comings and goings. Save any suspicious texts or emails. And whatever you do, don't let your emotions make you do something we can't walk back in court. When I got home that evening, Alara was in the kitchen making dinner. She'd changed clothes since morning, now wearing jeans and a sweater instead of the business attire she put on earlier. Where were you today? I asked, hanging my keys on the hook by the door. I told you I called in sick. I've been here all day. Really? Because your car wasn't here when I came home for lunch. She froze. Wooden spoon halfway to her mouth for tasting. I went to get groceries. Where are they? Alara looked around the kitchen like she was seeing it for the first time. I didn't find anything we needed. The lie was so clumsy it was almost insulting. But instead of confronting her, I just nodded. Daddy, Leo came running in from the living room. Mommy said we might go see Aunt Anya this weekend. I looked at Alara. Her sister lived in Cincinnati, 2 hours away. Perfect distance for a secret rendezvous. Did she now? I said, forcing a smile for my son. That sounds fun, buddy. But inside, I was already planning my next move. If Alara wanted to play games, I'd make sure I knew the rules. Friday night came with an unexpected gift. Alara announced over dinner that she was indeed going to visit her sister for the weekend, taking both kids with her. Anya's been asking to see them, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. And I thought it might be good for us to have some space to think. That's thoughtful of you, I said, cutting Leo's chicken into smaller pieces. When are you leaving? Tomorrow morning, early. We'll be back Sunday evening. I nodded like this was perfectly normal, but my mind was racing. A weekend away meant a weekend with Marcus. And if Gregor was doing his job, we'd have proof. After the kids were in bed, I called Gregor from my home office. She's taking a trip to Cincinnati tomorrow, I told him. Claims it's to visit her sister, but I'm betting it's really about her boyfriend. Perfect, Gregor said. I'll follow at a distance, get photos of wherever she actually goes. If she's meeting this Marcus character, we'll have documentation. What if she really is going to her sister's? Then you'll know your wife is telling the truth for once. Either way, you'll have your answer. Saturday morning, I helped load the kids into Alara's SUV, playing the role of the supportive husband. Leo was excited about seeing his cousin. Chloe was just happy to have her stuffed elephant for the trip. Be good for your mom, I told them, giving each a hug through the car window. We will, Daddy, Leo promised. I kissed Alara goodbye, and she actually seemed surprised by the gesture. I'll call when we get there, she said. Drive safe, I replied. I watched them drive away, then went inside to wait. The house felt empty without the kids' voices filling it, but I used the quiet to think. If Gregor found what I suspected he would, I'd have to make some hard decisions about our future. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Gerard Dubois, my neighbor from across the street. Gerard was a Vietnam vet in his late 60s. The kind of man who noticed everything and said little. Julian, he said without preamble. You got a minute to talk? Sure, Gerard. What's up? Maybe we should talk in person. I've got something you need to see. 5 minutes later, I was standing in Gerard's living room while he pulled out his phone. I've been noticing some things lately, he said, scrolling through his photos. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but after seeing your wife leave with the kids this morning. He handed me the phone. The photo showed Alara's car in our driveway, but there was a black BMW parked behind it. The timestamp was from 3 days ago, 2:30 p.m., when I'd been at a client meeting and the kids were at school. There's more, Gerard said grimly, swiping to the next photo. This one showed Alara and a man I recognized as Marcus walking out my front door together. They weren't touching, but their body language spoke volumes. Gerard, I said, handing him back his phone. You might have just saved my life. Sunday evening brought Alara and the kids home from Cincinnati. I was in the living room when they walked in, Leo chattering about his cousin's new video game, while Chloe rubbed her sleepy eyes. How was Aunt Anya? I asked, giving both kids hugs. She made pancakes with faces, Leo announced. And we went to the zoo. That sounds fun, buddy. Why don't you and Chloe go get ready for baths? After the kids headed upstairs, I turned to Alara. How was your weekend? Good. Relaxing. Anya sent her love. She was avoiding eye contact, busy unpacking the kids' overnight bags. That's funny, I said, pulling out my phone, because I called Anya yesterday afternoon to see how you were doing. Alara froze. A tiny pair of Chloe's pants halfway out of the bag. She was surprised to hear from me. I continued. Said she hadn't seen you in months and wasn't expecting a visit. Alara straightened slowly, her face cycling through expressions like a slot machine. I can explain. I'm sure you can. But before you do, you should know that Gregor Novak has been following you all weekend. The private investigator I hired. He's got photos of you and Marcus at the Marriott in Worthington. Time-stamped, dated, crystal clear. The color drained from her face. You hired someone to spy on me. I hired someone to document the truth. There's a difference. I set my phone on the coffee table. Gerard Dubois from across the street also had some interesting photos. Marcus's BMW in our driveway while I was at work and the kids were at school. Alara sank onto the couch like her strings had been cut. Julian, I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? Just emotional cheating? Just kissing? Where exactly was the line you weren't planning to cross? I don't know, she whispered. I felt invisible in this house, like I was just another item on your to-do list. So you brought him here? To our house? Where our children sleep? The kids weren't here, she said quickly. I would never. But you did. You brought your affair into our home. I kept my voice steady, but anger was building in my chest. Do you have any idea what that means for custody? Her head snapped up. Custody? Julian, we don't have to go that route. We can work this out. Can we? Because from where I'm sitting, you've been lying to me for months, using our children as cover stories for your affair and bringing your boyfriend into our family home. What exactly is there to work out? I ended it, she said suddenly. This weekend, I told Marcus it was over. Which time? Before or after the hotel room? She closed her eyes. After. So, you went to Cincinnati to have a goodbye weekend with your boyfriend? It wasn't supposed to happen like that. We were going to talk and things just happened. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at Gerard's house across the street. The old Marine was probably watching, ready to back me up if needed. Here's what's going to happen, I said, turning back to Alara. Tomorrow, you're going to call your boss and request a transfer to another department. If they can't accommodate that, you're going to find a new job. Julian, I can't just. Yes, you can. And you will. Because if you want any chance of keeping this family together, you're going to prove it. What else? She asked quietly. Full access to your phone, email, everything. No passwords, no privacy settings. Complete transparency. That's not reasonable. Reasonable went out the window when you started sleeping with Marcus Thorne. I sat back down across from her. You want to save this marriage? Those are my terms. Non-negotiable. Alara was quiet for a long moment. Upstairs, I could hear the kids playing in the bathtub. Their innocent laughter a stark contrast to the conversation happening below. What if I can't do it? She asked finally. Then I'll see you in court. The next week felt like walking through a minefield. Alara had agreed to my terms, but agreeing and following through are different things. She had requested a department transfer at work, citing personal conflicts with her supervisor. HR was reviewing the request. Meanwhile, I'd started keeping the journal Astrid Svensson had recommended. Every late arrival, every suspicious phone call, every interaction with the kids, it all went into a composition notebook I kept in my desk drawer. Tuesday afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Marcus Thorne stood on my front porch in his expensive suit, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. We need to talk, he said when I opened the door. Do we? I kept my hand on the door frame, not inviting him in. Look, I know this is awkward, but Alara told me you know about us. I want to clear the air. Clear the air. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. No way was this man coming into my house. You've been sleeping with my wife for 3 months, and you want to clear the air? It wasn't supposed to happen, Marcus said, raising his hands. We were working late. She was having problems at home. One thing led to another. Problems at home that you helped create by pursuing a married woman. I didn't pursue her, he said defensively. She came to me. And being a man of integrity, you turned her down. Marcus's jaw tightened. It's not that simple. Actually, it is exactly that simple. My wife made vows to me, but you didn't. You could have walked away at any time. Instead, you chose to help her break up a family. Look, Keller, I'm trying to be decent about this. Alara ended things between us. I'm respecting that decision. I just want to make sure we can all move forward professionally. Professionally? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to know what's professional? Not sleeping with your subordinate. Not creating a hostile work environment for married women. Not showing up at someone's house to justify your behavior. I'm not trying to justify anything. Then why are you here? Marcus looked uncomfortable for the first time since he'd arrived. Alara asked me to talk to you. She thinks if we can reach some kind of understanding, maybe you won't pursue the divorce. Understanding. I stepped closer and Marcus instinctively backed up. Here's my understanding. You stay away from my wife. You stay away from my family. And if I see you anywhere near my house again, we're going to have a very different conversation. Are you threatening me? I'm setting boundaries. Big difference. Marcus straightened his tie and tried to recover some dignity. Fine, but for what it's worth, I think you're making a mistake. Alara is a good woman who made a bad choice. Everyone deserves a second chance. You're right, I said. Everyone does deserve a second chance, but nobody deserves a third or fourth chance to keep making the same bad choice. After Marcus left, I called Gregor Novak. Interesting development. I told him about the visit. Any chance you can find out if Thorns had affairs with other married employees? I can make some calls, Gregor said. If he's got a pattern of behavior, it might be useful leverage. That evening, Alara was quieter than usual during dinner. After we put the kids to bed, she found me in my home office reviewing client files. Marcus told me he came by, she said from the doorway. He did. Wanted to clear the air. Julian, I didn't ask him to do that. I looked up from my laptop. Didn't you? Okay. Maybe I mentioned that I wish you two could talk, but I didn't tell him to come here. Doesn't matter. What matters is that your affair partner thinks he can show up at my house and negotiate terms for my marriage. Alara came into the office and sat in the chair across from my desk. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you and the kids, but we've been together 8 years, Julian. Doesn't that count for something? It counts for exactly what it's worth, I said. And right now, I'm not sure that's enough. 3 weeks after my ultimatum, Alara made her choice. I came home from a client meeting to find her in our bedroom packing a suitcase. Going somewhere. I asked from the doorway. She didn't look up from folding clothes. I got the transfer to the Cincinnati office. I start Monday. Cincinnati? That's 2 hours away. I know. She finally met my eyes. And I got a job offer there, too. Same company, different apartment. The pieces fell into place. So, you're following him. We're starting over, Julian. Clean slate. No complications. What about the kids? They can visit on weekends. Cincinnati's not that far. I felt something cold settle in my chest. You're abandoning your children for a man who's already proven he can't be trusted. I'm not abandoning them. I'm trying to find myself again. You're running away. There's a difference. Alara threw a sweater into the suitcase harder than necessary. You never fought for me, Julian. Not once. When I handed you those divorce papers, you just signed them. When I told you about Marcus, you didn't even try to win me back. You wanted me to fight for someone who was already gone. I wanted you to care enough to try. I walked into the room and sat on the edge of the bed. Alara, I did fight for you for 8 years. Every time you pulled away, every time you tested me, every time you made me feel like I wasn't enough, I stayed. I fought by being faithful, by being present, by building something stable for our family. That's not fighting. That's just existing. No, I said quietly. That's called being a husband. She stopped packing and looked at me. For a moment, I saw the woman I'd married, vulnerable, searching, lost. Then she blinked, and the stranger was back. I'll be gone before the kids get home from school, she said. I don't want them to see me leave. Coward, maybe, but at least I'm honest about what I want now. An hour later, she was gone. I called Astrid Svensson immediately. Emergency custody hearing, I told her. She's abandoning the children to follow her boyfriend to another state. We'll file tomorrow morning, Astrid assured me. With her leaving voluntarily and the documentation we have, this should be straightforward. That evening, I sat Leo and Chloe down in the living room. Leo sensed something was wrong. Chloe was just happy to have my attention. Kids, I said carefully. Mommy had to go away for work. She's going to live in Cincinnati for a while. When is she coming back? Leo asked. I don't know, buddy, but you're going to stay here with me. Okay. Is Mommy coming to my birthday party? Leo's 8th birthday was next month. We'll see, I said, though I doubted it. That night, I called Gerard Dubois. Gerard, I might need some help with the kids while I sort out childcare. Whatever you need, Julian. Those kids are lucky to have you. Thanks. And Gerard, thank you for having my back through all this. That's what neighbors do. Besides, I've got grandkids their age. It'll be good practice. As I hung up, I realized something had shifted. The weight of uncertainty was gone. Alara had made her choice, and now I could make mine. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what I was fighting for. 6 months later, I stood in the courthouse holding the final custody order. Primary custody of Leo and Chloe was mine. Alara had visitation rights every other weekend, but she'd only used them twice since moving to Cincinnati. Congratulations, Astrid Svensson said, shaking my hand. Your kids are lucky to have a father who fought for them. They deserve stability, I replied. That's all I ever want to give them. The divorce settlement had been fair, but painful. Alara got half the house equity and a portion of my retirement savings. I kept the business and primary custody. The house would stay in my name until the kids turned 18. As I walked to my car, my phone rang. It was Paul from the office. How'd it go? He asked. It's over. Really? Over this time? Good. Now you can focus on building something new. He was right. The business was thriving. Word of mouth had brought in several new clients over the past few months. Leo was excelling in second grade, and Chloe was talking in full sentences now. We found our rhythm as a family of three. Gerard Dubois had become like a grandfather to the kids. He picked them up from school on days when I was running late and taught Leo how to throw a baseball. Sometimes I caught him reading to Chloe on his front porch, her tiny voice asking endless questions about the pictures. Mr. Gerard, she'd call him, and he'd light up like Christmas morning. 3 months ago, I'd started attending a support group for single fathers. The guys there understood the challenge of rebuilding after betrayal, of being both mother and father, of explaining to children why their other parent chose to leave. The thing about divorce, one of the older men had told me, is that it's not the end of your story. It's just the end of a chapter you didn't want to finish writing. He was right. I was writing a new chapter now, one where my children came first, where loyalty meant something, where trust was earned rather than assumed. Last week, Leo had asked me if I was going to marry someone else someday. Maybe, I told him honestly, but only if she loves you and Chloe as much as I do. What if she doesn't? He'd asked with 6-year-old seriousness. Then she's not the right person for our family. He nodded, satisfied with that answer. Now, as I drove home from the courthouse, I thought about the future. The house felt like ours now, mine and the kids. We'd repainted Leo's room blue and turned the guest room into a proper space for Chloe. The kitchen table was covered with homework and art projects instead of tension and secrets. I pulled in the driveway and saw Gerard on his porch waving. The kids would be home from school in an hour and we'd celebrate quietly. Maybe pizza and a movie. Nothing dramatic. Just the three of us moving forward together. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Julian, I heard about the custody. I hope you're happy now. I read it twice then deleted it without responding. Some conversations were over, and that was okay. I had better things to focus on than looking backward. The future was waiting, and for the first time in years, I was ready for it.